Okay. This is again from a supply chain perspective, which kind of technology will be can help you address, but it need not be supply chain. I guess people are from different backgrounds here. You can also talk about technology adoption in technology adoption in any different context, maybe even if it's a government context or it's in a public distribution. You can imagine that. When I interact with companies, many companies are trying to adopt digital technologies, but they lack this overview of which technologies can help where, right? In our field, it's important to understand which processes get affected, what is the challenge we are trying to address, and can this technology address this challenge? The technologies have some features. The problem requires certain things to be addressed, and is there a fit? That task technology fit has to be conducted to understand. Blockchain may be good, but is blockchain suitable for the problem I am trying to solve, or is IoT the solution, or is it a combination of different technologies? That is lacking in many companies. As you know, this is buzzword, every company is doing. A CEO attends many events and they think this is a good thing for you to do. Sometimes it happens that way. The other one, sometimes it's the people within the organization, maybe the IT department or maybe somebody in supply chain, they create a proposal and then it needs to be evaluated by the senior people, and they lack the full knowledge of what is possible and what is not, right? So these decisions then take a lot of time. Some cases it is implemented very ad hoc manner. In some cases, people are not able to convince their bosses that this is needed. Both I have seen. So this was an attempt to give them an overview of what is possible using what kind of technology, right? If you say that lack of data-driven decision making is your problem in your company, now it has been very ad hoc, or it has been very people dependent, and you want to now move into data-driven culture, obviously you need to ensure that you collect the right data. Now there are different ways to collect that data, so I mentioned something here. If it's a manufacturing process data, then IoT can be useful. If it's a marketing, then social media will have to be there. Then data analytics and reporting has to be there before you can move on to a data-driven culture. This is not purely exhaustive, but at least you can get a sense of what I'm trying to say. If you say a significant amount of paper trail is a problem in your supply chain, that a lot of paperwork, documentation is there, a lot of things are missed and inefficiencies and errors creep in, then robotic process automation or AI or any kind of distributed ledger technology might be an approach for you to go in that direction to reduce that significant amount of paper trail. If you say risk management is very problematic, you have no overview of the kind of risk and how they impact and where the risks are coming on, then nowadays there are companies, you might know, they are literally tracking every newspaper in the world, every language. Now it's available. If it's a digital version of the newspapers are available. From that they are going through the news stories, they are identifying different risk events, and then they are telling, let's say in a big supply chain, global supply chain, in a fourth or fifth tier supplier, maybe a small supplier is there in China and a fire is happening or a labor strike is happening, you will not come to know. Supplier is not going to tell you in many cases, right? But if you get those news stories, then there are companies. There is a company called Resilink. It's an Indian woman. She was an MIT graduate. She formed this company. So they do this kind of supply chain mapping as well as news or tracking, and then they are able to say to their clients, who are usually the big companies, that this kind of event is happening in your supply chain, and maybe in 2 to 3 weeks time this will actually propagate to your part of the supply chain and your production will be stopped or your logistics will be stopped, and they can pretty much predict, and then the company can plan for other supply chain actions. A big challenge now is this sustainability reporting, right? ESG related measurement and reporting. Within a companies are trying to make an effort to understand what is their carbon footprint, what is their water footprint and other things, and still they have made some progress. I'll say in the last 10 years, a lot of improvement has happened. But imagine doing this across your supply chain. If you have to create a carbon footprint of your product, then it's coming from right from the raw material, mining through all the processing, and then your process, and then logistics and so on. Unless we have data across the supply chain, it's very difficult to do. That's why again combination of IoT, DLT, and I mentioned digital product passport, digital twin, many things are needed to make it happen, right? So that you have full visibility of the data coming from different parts of your processes. Similarly, there are other things I've mentioned. Lack of transparency is a big problem. There again, supply chain control tower or a distributed ledger technology like blockchain might help. Planning processes, many times planning processes are very rigid. It happens every month in most companies. At the end of in the last week of the month, they plan for the next month and the next 3 months. But whatever is happening in the market within that time horizon, it is lost. But market is very dynamic. What is happening this week and next week will be different. It might be different. There are some special events happening, or there is a catastrophic weather event happening. And all of these impact your demand, and accordingly you should affect your supply chain planning. But if that is not considered, then you have already planned and forecasted demand. You have very little option to change anything in that. So there again technologies like now machine learning based forecasting models or cognitive demand planning are coming up, where they are using model based techniques along with human intelligence to come up with those. Now I have used this framework in many of my research and I find it quite powerful. It's relatively simple. It's called CIMO. It comes from the design science research, that context, intervention, mechanism and outcome. Whenever we are, and particularly in this technology adoption context, I think this is important. So what is the context? What is the problem which we are trying to solve? Then intervention is what we are trying to do. It can be a technology intervention, it can be anything else. Intervention is what we are going to do to solve the problem. Till that point it's clear. But what most companies don't do is the linkage of that intervention to that outcome, and that comes through that mechanism. I will say that technology A will help you address this problem B to get an outcome O. Outcome, let's say it's improved sustainability, improved carbon footprint, or improved resilience, or improved cost efficiency. But how? How is it going to happen is that what is most important in this discussion is the mechanisms by which the technology will actually create that outcome. It doesn't fall from the sky. There are certain specific mechanisms by which this intervention will be able to help you achieve that outcome. Unless you are clear about it, that why this blockchain will help, what is it so unique about blockchain and its features that it can help me address this problem. So that mechanism has to be understood, and then the outcomes will possibly come. So when you are trying to create a business case or a justification of doing anything, try to identify those mechanisms by which it will work. This still doesn't require a lot of numbers. I mean, this is still conceptual. After this, then you can create a more detailed business case. That this much investment we will need to have this intervention, and the outcomes, okay, I will say 10% improvement in outcome A, which is kind of energy consumption reduction or water consumption reduction, or ability to bounce back from any risk event within 1 week or whatever. So we will create those outcomes, and then you monitor this. Once you are doing some pilot projects, then you monitor against those specific outcomes whether you are getting those benefits or not, right? If you don't get any of these benefits, then obviously this is not a good idea. Maybe you tried as a pilot project, but it didn't work. Some cases you may be able to get or even exceed the benefits. So this is benefits tracking and monitoring is also important. But if you have not done this exercise, you simply assume, because all the technology developers, they are going to sell their technology. They are telling all the positive things. But they don't tell you what are the difficulties in implementing that solution, right? And a lot of it, as he was mentioning, a lot of it was human dependent. A lot of it is about processes within your company, which they are not also aware of. You have certain processes. If you on top of it try to adopt blockchain, it's very difficult. So you have to change your processes, or you have to embed the technology in your existing processes. So a lot of my work which I have done on blockchain was not technical, was not about blockchain. It is about how you implement the blockchain within an organization. And organization, as we know, in supply chain, there are many small companies. How will they don't care about blockchain. Or if you are saying, I will implement blockchain in agricultural supply chain, farmers don't need to know the technicalities of blockchain, right? They have nothing to do. But if they get benefit, if they say your farm, they are only interested in their income. Is my income going to improve if I adopt this? Then that message has to be clear, made clear why this will improve. And you have to show through some pilot projects why this will improve, right? So this is I was trying to do a lot of work in that area, and I found that companies are lacking this, the service providers. But whoever is able to do it successfully, they were able to actually make this clear. They did lot of work at the ground level, at the operational level, to make it work. I give an example. There was in Thailand there is a kind of fruit called durian. You have not seen. It is a little bit like jackfruit. It is very, it is highly nutritious, but as it a tropical fruit, it is quite susceptible to any kind of temperature fluctuation. So all these Thailand farmers, they were packing. There are many companies there who take this fruit and pack it and ship it to China. The biggest market obviously is in China. And for more than 1 year, none of them got any payment from the Chinese retailers. Because by the time it reached the stores, it seems the fruit has already deteriorated in condition. It was not in edible condition at all. So how will these people prove, the farmers and small packing companies, they had no technology, that by the time they shipped, it was in good quality. So then there's one company called Demuto, it's a Singapore-based company. They identified that problem, and they did a pilot project to start with on their own. Right? They took pictures, they collected a lot of data about the processes, and they inserted a chip in that box, and then it was blockchain enabled, and they tracked. While tracking, they found that a lot of temperature fluctuation was happening during shipping. It was going through ships. And whatever reason, many times these containers are kept next to the engine room of the ship. Engine room of the ship will be even bigger than this room. Right? Many of these containers, fruit containers, are next to this engine room. And if something happens, engine exhaust, the gas flue is coming out, and that is impacting the temperature of those containers. And inside the containers, these fruits are there, and the fruits already some microbial, when there is a bacterial contamination is starting during the shipping, and by the time they reach the end of the journey, the fruit has already deteriorated. So the shipping company didn't know what is there in the package. Something is coming, they are keeping. There is no understanding that this cannot be kept near the engine room. Right? So this was told to the shipping company, and then they found out the problem and they rectified it. But this was only possible through that technology, and then the retailers, Chinese retailers, once they changed it, the quality improved, and then they could start getting the payments. So this was a real problem, the real problem which was solved through, in this case, technology means.
But these logistic companies or partners have smart contracts nowadays, where you can actually look at those.
Yes, but this was before. Even before, they didn't have this, right? And not everybody, most companies do not. Logistics players do not want to get into the smart contracts. But now if something like this critical happens, that the buyer is, the seller is not getting any payment at all. This is not fair. And it was told, then it was found out this is because of the logistics issues. Then they had to change. Otherwise, these people will stop shipping to them. And these are all small farmers, so anyway, they didn't have much buying power. But let's imagine a large company is shipping and their product is getting deteriorated. Then this is where the smart contracts.
Even this during COVID vaccines, actually because they are effective only.
Yeah.
Then we use that same.
Yeah. Yes. The other thing which I have done when I do, as you can see, I do a lot of work, practical work with companies, and this is an overview of kind of digital readiness assessment. Once a company have done an assessment of which technologies may be useful, they need to assess what is their internal capabilities. Are they ready to even adopt, right? So that's where existence of an overall digital strategy and execution. Do they have anything in place? Most companies do not have a digital strategy. They don't have they have an operation strategy. They might have functional strategies, but within that, digital may be lacking, right? Are they able to create that business case? that financial evaluation with kind of realistic numbers. Do they have a portfolio approach to technology adoption, or is it kind of a shotgun approach? I just take technology A, somebody says it's good, CEO has attended an event, he found this is good and we adopt. Or do they have a scientific process of evaluating, and not just a single technology but a portfolio of technologies? If you start these projects, do you have governance mechanisms? Who is responsible for what? Finally, the buck has to stop with some people. Some people has to have responsibility, right? Who is accountable? Who has to be informed? So this RASI, that who has to be reported about this, who is accountable, this is important. Obviously, then there are also technological issues, data sharing and portability across systems, data availability, data quality, many of the things. Sometimes we don't have data. If you don't have data, then it's a big problem. Data quality also is an issue. Then comes the culture of experimentation, trial and tolerance towards failures. All of these things may not work from day one, right? And it may take a lot of time to give the results because of the challenges I was mentioning. On the ground, there may be many different challenges. Are you able to address this? And if the company doesn't tolerate any kind of failure, everything, now we have invested a lot of money, immediately within next 6 months or 1 year, we have to get these results, it may not work. Any kind of R&D work, this is a type of an R&D work, which will also take time to. And what is the knowledge management and accumulation within the company? Are people across functions sharing what they have done? Can some other part of the organization or in different geographies, can they adopt this? So these things are important. This is not related to the technology at all, but what are the kind of enablers I have found that these are important for any kind of technology adoption. So the companies have to do this digital readiness assessment. In my earlier life, I used to be a consultant with Deloitte, and this is where we always used to do this, and most consulting firms will do this. Whatever projects you are doing, finally it has to, now it's not just shareholder value, but shareholder value also comes with some business expectations and CSR. Whatever you are doing, how is it impacting revenue? How is it impacting profit? How is it impacting asset efficiency? So this DuPont or ROIC tree, return on invested capital tree, has to be formed, right? Is it impacting my volume? Is it impacting my price? Is it impacting my selling general administrative cost, cost of goods sold? What is it that this is going to impact? Right? And we can go to as much detail level of metrics you can see. Depending on the technology or the process where you are implementing it, it will affect certain parts of this tree. And then you can say my revenue growth will come. This is again the kind of mechanisms I am talking about. This particular intervention is going to impact some part of this performance metrics through this. My revenue growth will improve because my volume is increased, or my pricing will increase. My asset efficiency will increase because it will help in reduction in inventory. Some cases it may be receivables and payables. So what is it that I need to understand? Then every consulting firm does this. So they will then say, because of doing this improvement, your performance, overall shareholder value will improve by this much percentage. Your revenue growth, you will see 10%. Now with that benchmark, they will do an as-is analysis. They will collect the data, and once this is done, they will monitor, they will do this pilot project and see whether they are achieving this. This has to be done, though it may seem to be cliche. Maybe the consulting companies show some benefit and they leave and then nothing happens. Still there is a very strong method in this. I mean, consulting companies simply cannot say that this will happen and they leave. They have to demonstrate why it is happening and how. And even if they do a pilot project, they have to give that. Sometimes they will not reach the target. Sometimes they will exceed the target or meet the target. Same process companies have to follow. Whenever they are doing any kind of improvements, this data has to be collected, and then the impact on the outcome has to be there. What I found challenging is the improvements happen in different parts of the function in different process. Sometimes in marketing, sometimes within manufacturing. Sometimes, let's say it is driven by HR, it's an HR process which is getting improved. But these people are not trained to create this financial. If you talk to an engineer in the shop floor, like where I started off, we didn't know anything about finance. I know I am doing some lean, I am doing process improvement. If you ask me how this improvement will improve your profit, how will I say? I have not been trained, I am not an MBA, or even some MBAs will not be able to do this. So this requires strong understanding of the process as well as some financial understanding. So there are very few textbooks actually does this finance and functional integration. So this is the basic level of finance I think everybody should know, to say that if I am doing, even in our personal lives, we are making an investment or doing certain things, I must know what is its impact, right? And this is one way to do it. These are some examples. I will not go through all of the details based on, again, mostly supply chain examples, because I am talking supply chain here. Some companies who have done this, right, this kind of technology adoption, you will not see a lot. There are very few success stories. This is not exhaustive. There should be some more. But in general, out of many technology adoptions, maybe few companies are doing. And sometimes these companies are not very well known. So this RPA and AI for procurement, this robotic process automation, there is a company called Dormakaba. So they create all the door security locking systems, and it's a small German company, very niche. But they have done very good work in AI in the procurement side of things. 3D printing and virtual warehousing, there are many German companies, again Bosch, Siemens. German Railways actually is very good in this. I have been involved with them. So DB is Deutsche Bahn, German Railways. I tried to talk many times to some of my friends in Indian Railways, but nothing has happened. We are also not willing to try an experiment at that level of large, huge organization. Who is going to drive this in an organization like Indian Railways? But German Railways created a team. They created a team specifically to look at 3D printing. They brought in people, engineers from different parts of the company. They put in a senior person who will oversee. And they had already printed, I think, more than almost 1.5 lakh parts. They are not the engineering company. They are not making their own trains. They are running the trains. But they have been able to print those parts, spare parts, because their trains, as you know, German design, some of the trains are 1950s and 60s built. They are still running very well. And they need spare parts for those trains. Now, if something happens, getting a spare parts for such an old train is very difficult. Suppliers have all gone out of business, or they don't want to do this, right? So then they started doing this. Blockchain, Walmart did some work. IIT is that Colombian company I was saying, they did work on the coffee supply chain. Supply chain control tower and digital twin is again very complex. Across the supply chain, you are digitizing the processes. Intel mostly have done within the manufacturing, but Mars, the chocolate company, they have done it across supply chain.
Can you share a use case of Walmart driving where
Well, this was for blockchain. Which particular product I will have to remember, but they had, I think the famous one was some lettuce or some leaves, highly perishable product. Similar thing they have done. Similarly, there are other retailers like Carrefour in France, they have also done. Now, all of these I have seen pilots. After this, some pilot product categories, they have got results. To what extent they have extended this across, I don't know. I have not seen many of these. Then these are again, companies ask, so I tried to create this. Who are the service providers who are doing this? Most companies say we cannot do this on our own. And this is not also their business. So try to create a list of which are the small startups and service providers who are working in this area, and very niche. So Project 44, I think they work only on the lever data, maybe only on the procurement side of things. Some are across processes, but their specialty is RPA and AI. Right? 3D printing, there are few, not many. Particularly spare parts is 3D, spare parts 3D and Diamond X and so on. Now blockchain and digital product are transport only for circular economy. Then there is Circularize and Origin Trail. EcoVadis has become very famous. So they are doing all the ESG reporting now for all companies for sustainable sourcing. Supply chain control tower, this is more supply chain planning. It used to be sales and operations planning. Now all of these, Blue Yonder, Kinaxis, O9, they all provide solutions in that space. Supply chain risk management, this Resilink I was mentioning, this is an MIT startup, but now no longer a startup, they are very well known. COVID times they became quite famous because they were able to predict many of these risks, and Sphera. And as some of you are mentioning, despite having all of this, still you need to know what are the people changes, right? What are the process changes I need to do to implement this. So people process technology, this never fails. For any kind of improvement action, what is how people need to be trained, what we need to communicate to them, does organizational structure need to change, what are the things. So there are a lot of people and human resource related things which need to happen. But usually in such technology implementation, nobody consults HR first, right? HR doesn't know, the learning development team doesn't know what is going on. So there is a lot of things which get missed on the human side of things. Similarly, your processes, are existing processes going to work? Sometimes some companies say no, we cannot change our process. Irrespective of what we are doing, it has to work with our processes. It has to work embed in our existing process. Sometimes companies will say, okay, I think the existing process will not work at all, so we need to change our process. The moment we change our process, then it's also a big task. Who will going to change the process? Who is going to create the new documentation or standard operating procedure, and then for technology adoption something. Let's say I'm trying to procure something. In procurement something has to change. But you already have your existing process. If you say now you are going to adopt robotic process automation, you are going to do AI, then some of these processes have to change, right? So that also has to come from the senior leaders, say vice president supply chain, will have to approve and go through this process. Okay, now we will go procurement in a different way. Otherwise, the buyers themselves, they have no authority to change because they have been buying like this for many years. Now, if you ask them, a simple thing I always see, procurement, many large companies still also buy on cost, right? Everything they buy on a unit price. Despite knowing sustainability is important, risk is important, nobody considers a whole set of metrics. That comes to total cost of ownership. What is the total cost? It's not just the individual buying part, the inventory cost, logistics cost, plus the sustainability related costs. All of these things we talk academically and in textbooks and research papers, very few companies actually do it. Finally, the buyer is not able to do anything because he or she is evaluated based on price. At what price have you bought? Like that famous kitna deti hai type. Finally, we are still focusing on the cost. Now, if you ask the buyer now things will be different, then the process has to change. That poor fellow doesn't have any authority to change anything, right? So that process change has to happen. In the technology, many times the companies may not have the IT infrastructure, right? Plus, we have so many different IT systems. The large companies have 30, 40 ERP systems, not even one. Across the globe, they have 30, 40 ERP systems. Even in each ERP system, how the same metric, maybe you are measuring something as A in country A, in country B, you are all measuring slightly different. And ERP systems are different. Finally, how are you going to then manage all of these things, right? And sometimes we also see data needs to be collected from different systems. For 3D printing, I face a lot of challenges because I need supply chain data as well as I also need product and design data. Design and product data comes from PLM systems, product lifecycle management systems. And supply chain data comes from ERP. How do I merge and match all of these things? Many companies didn't have any clue. So we had to manually take this data, match this and do many of these things, right? And that is a lot of work and task. Companies do not estimate what is needed. You cannot start implementing technology from day one because of these reasons and other changes. So finally, in a very simple way which people can understand, I created this framework. So you will see there are challenges. I mentioned in supply chain, it can be any challenge, right? Let's say there are different challenges. Again, I cannot address all challenges. I need to prioritize which are the ones have an highest impact on the outcome I'm trying to improve. Companies may say, I want to improve on sustainability, I want to be more resilient, or simply I want to improve profitability, whatever it is, and then which of these particular challenges have a direct impact on those outcomes. Let's say from this, I say I have identified 2 or 3 challenges which are our top priorities. At the same time, we have some technologies, technology 1 to n. There, as I was saying, we need to assess this task technology fit. To address these challenges, we need to do ABC. These technologies have certain features. Which of these technologies will help me in addressing those tasks? Right? So that's where the task technology fit will come in, and then we identify, okay, technology 2 and technology 3 together may help me in addressing these particular challenges which I have identified. Then I have to do this digital maturity assessment, as I have said, and service provider selection. If companies want to do it internal, that's fine. Most of the companies will look for some outside help and they will do this. And even from this supply chain challenges, we need to identify the specific use case, as you were mentioning, right? Maybe I am addressing that problem of traceability, but for which product, which geography, where we will do, specific use case we have to identify. Then we involve other supply chain partners. In many cases, it will not be you. Supply chain means we have to talk with many of your suppliers, distributors, logistics providers, and you plan a pilot project and an impact assessment. And impact assessment is important. Many times I see impact assessment is not done. Right? What is the final impact of doing this project? They have done the project, but what is this outcome? Nobody knows. Finally, this governance and change management. If everything is there, then only you go back and start implementing in practice, right? But that's why in blockchain, many of these have remained as pilot project stage. Nothing have improved beyond this. But even for other technologies, but just imagine the work which is needed to do this. Our company is willing to spend effort to do this. That means there are people who are going to involved in this. They are still doing their day-to-day job. This has to be taken out of there, that they will say that 20% of your time you now focus on it. Or you create a separate project team. They are removed from their day-to-day duties and they focus. If something is very critical, sometimes companies create this kind of special projects team and they do it. Or sometimes this is part of their regular job and then this is the additional they are allocated some certain time and then they will do it. Now for small companies it's not possible. There are only 15-20 people, let's say, in a company. I am a small supplier. Now my customer has said they want to adopt blockchain or 3D printing or IoT or whatever. I have no clue what to do. And if the OEM, the big customer or it's a retailer, if they don't help me, I am also not going to spend a lot of my money. I don't have any money to spend on this. Big question comes is also who is going to fund this investment, right? Most cases it's the large company, the buyer company, the retailers, they are supposed to fund. In Walmart case, obviously they are not asking the suppliers to fund their blockchain effort. They have to put in still some time, they have to spend time in collecting data, which we will say as kind of a in-kind contribution. They are not directly putting in some money, but they are giving their hours, they are giving time. But the real investment is done by the large company who will buy this. If they also want to avoid that, then it will not. There is a lot of news about this Maersk, IBM. Maersk is a large shipping company, that their TradeLens platform failed. Right? They started with a lot of fanfare and finally they didn't go through it. There are many reasons. Currently we are doing research on that why it failed. Nobody publishes anything on failure stories, but we are interested why such a big thing, two large companies, and it failed, right? And there are many interesting things coming up in this that they didn't take into account. Right? It is a very competitive industry. You are asking almost all players in the chain to log into your platform, be part of the platform and share data. So how will this happen? They clearly saw it as a competitive threat. Plus within your supply chain again, they are not going to share data. So there are many things which went wrong.
We don't even get data for research work also.
Yes. That is a very big challenge. Globally it's also a challenge, but in general in Europe it is much better. Because what happens, students are supposed to do live projects with companies. In Denmark particularly, master theses have to be on a real problem. There is no way out. And even during the coursework, it is a big change for us to move into those kind of problem-based approach. They don't take 6 or 8 courses in a semester. They take only 3 courses. Then there is a project where you need to apply the learnings from those 3 courses. That means they are learning less. They are learning much less than Indian students. Now since I have worked in 3 different countries, they learn much less, but whatever they learn, they are very thorough. They know everything because they know to apply also. So every semester they do projects based on the courses they have taught, and their final dissertation is also practical. There is no way they can get away with doing pure academic work or a literature review or something or purely mathematical with no connection with real problem. No, this will never happen. They have to work on a real problem, and that's why this is a small country, the number of students is less, but all those students very easily get jobs, because by the time they have worked, In all this, and their masters also is 2 years like this, undergraduate 3 years, they have worked with many companies on real problems. One example, famous example I always tell, their electrical engineers can do the wiring of their own house. That is their level of learning. And their government authorizes them, that electrical engineers can do the wiring in their house. Civil engineers are allowed to build their own house, but we can do only the maths. We cannot actually do anything practical with the useful with that knowledge. As I said, when technology is only one part of the story, but a lot of process approach and then people skills are needed. And many companies are also struggling. This part, this tweeners I particularly like. Some of you might be interested in this. Many companies have realized that the senior people knows a lot about what happens within the company. Right? They have spent 20, 25, 30 years. They have very detailed understanding of the processes within their company, but they are completely clueless about any technology or digital technology or analytics, or they have no idea. But if you are hiring a new graduate, many of them are digital savvy, they can do. So these people, they put it together. And there is a 360-degree appraisal happening between them. But it also is a culture shift. In our organizations, I don't know whether a senior 55-year-old person will accept if some fresh graduate is telling them something, right? But there has to be a mutual learning. So the junior person will teach something to the senior person will teach the process knowledge. And they have many particularly some of the banks I have seen, they have done this well, because banks also, a lot of senior employees are there. Now they are going through digital transformation, they are hiring young graduates. So there is no way that these two can be left separately, right? The people have to work together and learn from each other and so on. This was also a famous case a few years ago. Many such companies were there. Data analytics, big data analytics was all very fashionable. And they started hiring data scientists, that means people with masters in operations research, computer science or statistics. And many of these companies were hiring these people. But as you know, these people they are not going to collect data or clean data. They were expecting data is given to them and they will build the models. But these large companies, they didn't have any data analytics function. They suddenly started hiring data scientists and created all very highly qualified people they create. But these people have no contextual understanding of your business. Right? They are all mathematicians or computer scientists. And the people who knows your business, they don't know anything about data. So how will this work? And these people are expecting that data is kindly given. Right? And I always tell the students that initial few years, even if you have a PhD in maths or computer science, you become a data scientist, you still have to collect data, clean data, do kind of data sanity check. It will not be anything fun. But that hard work is needed. And you please understand that is needed before you start building your models. Right? So this organization realized that there's a lot of problem in their data. They have no foundation or a common understanding of the different data and the measures and where the data come from, how the data is defined. As I said, sometimes definition is varying from geography to geography, contextual text. So all of this needs to be done before the data scientists can work. So they completely had to dismantle their team and they start from zero again. Plus poor data quality. Again, companies don't talk about it. They assume everything is good. Only one project I did, again with a Danish pharmaceutical company. They agreed that there is a problem in their master data. So these students, they collected the basic supply chain data, some cost, lead time, supplier location, a few data points we collected. And from that we found that 80% of the data is not real. It is either old or simply some random numbers have been put. Let's say wherever in a ERP system everything has to be filled up, but you don't know certain data, lead time data from supplier. Somebody has randomly put 99 or 999 in their lead time. Some supplier locations are not known, some costs are not known, and based on that they are doing inventory calculations. So everything is wrong. It's a huge multi-billion-dollar company. I am sure there will be many such companies like that, where their master data has 70 to 80% inaccuracy. and based on that they are taking decisions. They will say, oh, we have ERP, oh, we have now big analytics team, but the data itself is wrong. Supplier lead time data, maybe it's the first time you contacted with the supplier, you collected some lead time data. After that, in 10 years, you have not very updated anything. That is already old. Supplier locations have changed. Lead times have also changed. None of this is being updated. So there are a lot of challenges in data quality, and most of the time people are searching for the right data within the company. 40% of the time is spent in searching, and 20 to 30% in cleaning data. This is again cost of poor quality data, it's very high. This is one from a paper, I think it's mentioned, I will give you. They also talk about this what and how of digital transformation. What are the building blocks? First, some strategic assets, then obviously it depends on the skills and initiatives you take. And as I mentioned, whether it's related to customer experience or operations or in the business model, so that engagement has to be done. And aligning organization and talent. I think you will have access to the slides, so that should be fine. Let's go to the case studies now. There are two case studies I have given. These are just, I have written myself, very short cases. One is an industrial products case. The other is, I found Bhadrak district in Odisha to be an interesting example because it faces lot of natural disasters. It has lot of challenges. So those who are interested on the social, on the government side of things, you can form a group and work on the Bhadrak case. Others can work on the industrial products case. First read the case for some time if you have not read, most of you, then form the groups and try to think. We will then have that discussion. Right? We have 1 hour, so it should be fine. More than 1 hour.
We will have a discussion of both the case studies.
We will have both, so I am requesting some of you work on the Bhadrak case, some of you work on the in products, and then we will have kind of final discussion on both the cases. I can show it on the screen also, but you have access. This is an industrial product case. There are certain things which is mentioned here. It's a short case. It gives a background of the company and what they have already done regarding digitalization, sustainability and resilience. And then you are supposed to create a framework specifying what data needs to be collected.
So this is a real company, only you have.
Yeah, yes. I masked it and made it very short. So. The other is the Bhadrak district digitalization. It again gives an overview of the district, what is the kind of agricultural thing, which they face a lot of natural disasters, what are the main agricultural source of income, its industrial profile. Now let's assume you are a consultant to the government of Odisha, then create a plan outlining how digital technologies can help. They want some support in weather forecasting, monitoring, planning for emergency, improving agricultural productivity, increasing access to quality healthcare. How will this do? Which technologies will help? All the things which we have discussed today should come alive. And these are the things I wanted to do also as part of the assessment. If you can, but now it seems we have to do only MCQ assessment. So that is easy, but if so who is working on Bhadrak, maybe you can separate, you can sit in one side and the others working and then together. How many of you are there? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 people are there, so 6 each, right? Hmm. Some at least 3-4 people work on the industrial products one, and others can work on Bhadrak.
Anybody else on the industrial production? Form market.
Hmm.
And you did form that. For discussion. The ownership.
Where the numbers are big, they will not like to shift. They have more power. Yeah, you can shift to the other side maybe. Yeah, Bhadrak. Whatever, if you want to sit at the back also is fine. So a lot of, yeah, as long as you don't hear too much. Yes, initially you can do yourself, but then discuss in groups within your group. For in products, the first question you might lead, we have not talked so much about operation strategy. So you can focus on creating the digitalization roadmap, right? Uh, Framework to evaluate and prioritize digital projects, data and so on. So these 4 questions you can work on, not this one.
आपको ऑलरेडी पता चलेगा कि
Maybe 10 more minutes and then we will start the discussion. Shall we start? Maybe the Bhadrak group, we can start. Big group. Who wants to take the lead and speak up?
Sir, one problem is there, that is which particular mechanism to be used, that we all don't know.
That is fine, okay.
So sir, just we start with the first one, the forecasting and monitoring. Like if we do it all year round with special focus on those months, I mean April to May and September to November.
Yeah.
With special focus, that will be better. And whenever there will be any kind of a signal which can lead to a future tsunami or flood, whatever it is, then that has to be immediately, messages should be sent to those areas who can be affected, the fishermen, and during that time, or else there can be another thing also which can be done during that period of time, which is likely to be hit by these floods and all. If they can be given an alternative mode of livelihood, meaning if they can go into the manufacturing rather than going for fishing that time, so that can also be a solution to it.
Yeah, that is interesting. But let's focus on weather forecasting, and what you said is right. Then which kind of technologies do you think can help in that? I'm sure actually Orissa government is doing very well in this. If you look at in the last few years, their mortality rates are quite low from weather disasters because there is a lot of focus. They must have done some work in that area. But let's say if they want to further improve, then what kind of technologies do you think might help in? Now there are a lot of localized weather forecasting monitoring which is coming up, right? Previously we used to know that this is almost like a national level or state level, but now we can, as you said, specific months we can put focus, specific regions, that's within Bhadrak district also, that specific coastal area we can focus on and create. But what kind of technologies can help?
So that
Yes. So one is so it requires first collecting data, right? So the data will be collected and then it's analyzed to predict these weather events.
Yes, sir.
Nothing.
Which is the time period wherein which will be hit, that collecting those data points is very important,
Yeah.
and which particular areas, like here they are saying that 41 villages are being affected every time. So which are the ones who are being hit first? So it's like the first layer and second
Yeah,
layer. So
yes,
like
yes.
that, if we can take measures.
So that is fine. So that is one important thing you can say. The outcome of this is we want that level of detail, that which villages are going to be hit first, what is
Yes.
the pathway of that cyclone. You
Yes.
should be able to predict, and these things are already done to some extent, I will believe.
And which kind of houses are they staying in? Are those pakka houses?
Pakka houses.
Are those made
Yeah.
of mud? If it is made of mud, then they should be taken to the nearer buildings which are made of with.
So they
which
have
are
already created some shelters
Yes,
and
yes,
so
those
on.
centers,
Yeah.
the schools can be utilized, the block division offices, those can be
So
utilized.
that is, we are already coming to the next one, which is planning for emergency response. But weather forecasting, now there is a lot of satellite imagery data. Right?
Yes, sir.
This is anyway Earth observation satellites collect that data. But we can say that we will zone in this area, this particular weather events we will focus on, and which will happen real time and with particular intensity in those months, as you said. But what you also said is important. There is existing data about the previous events, right? Plus they have all the demographic, the housing, the population, the age group, age profile, who are disabled people or older people. So this demographic they know, their houses they know, the agricultural activity they know. Plus in previous years, the history they know. So that data combined with real-time satellite data, then they will have to come up with a better understanding and prediction. Once there is done, now they have an existing disaster recovery network which they have already created. Many states, I don't think they have it.
No, they are the best, I guess.
Yeah.
Orissa is
They are
one of the
already,
best.
so they are at a very good level already. So they have created, Now, but the things are also changing. Weather is very dynamic, right? So the decision for them is, do they need to create more shelters, or if more, then which region, which areas, what is the location of that new center which they will create, what is the capacity of this, how many people, again based on where this will hit, which are the likely areas to hit, what is the population of that area, who lives in those non mud houses, that will dictate where you will create those new centers, the shelters, what should be the capacity and where it should be located. Plus, apart from this, many times the electricity goes off, the water condition is bad, sanitation issues happen, and then waterborne diseases come up. So, what is the plan for each of these? Immediately after the disaster, and maybe over a next 1 month or 2 months' time, all the other facilities have to be also mentioned. Right? For that, what is the digital? That is a very challenging problem, because if the no infrastructure exists, power exists, internet anyway doesn't exist in that area, how will they communicate this? How will they will mobilize and plan for this resource? The physical setup is still okay, they will build up this, but when it happens, there is also an SOP. I'm sure they will have created a standard plan. If this happens, we'll move people within this time frame and so on. But still things are happening dynamically. Some people are dying, or something has happened. How will they quickly mobilize?
Access to fresh water is the main issue.
Yeah, access to fresh water, some basic medicines, what kind of injuries happen, head injuries happen, waterborne diseases happen, so what kind of medicines need to be transported, where we will stock those medicines. All of these have to be planned, but there has to be some, obviously we now connect everything using WhatsApp or other messages, but is there a way we can create even things which will work with low bandwidth? There are now solutions. In India, I have seen some healthcare companies are working. Even if connectivity is not there, still they are able to collect data. Maybe then they will move to the district headquarters where they will have access. So some kind of crude or rudimentary network connectivity still has to be there, so that people can communicate during those times. Right? Okay, these two are related, weather forecasting and emergency. What about agriculture productivity?
So
Sir,
if I
for
can
that-
make a point, although I was
No,
not
sure,
there in
please.
the case, but I have been witness to two big cyclones.
Hmm.
In
Yeah.
Fani 2019 and
Yeah.
there was another Phylum
Yeah.
2016.
Hmm.
So what I perceive is from the ground is they have more or less, about. I will like to divide it into three phases. One is the pre-warning phase.
Pre-warning, yes.
Then that during that time, that cyclone, and then the post one. What I feel is Odisha government has more or less managed very well the pre-stage,
Pre-stage.
that means that forecasting part, and to a certain extent the during that phase, like making shelters and, because fatality rate is nil actually.
Yeah.
For the last,
Yeah.
What is challenging is the post phase.
Okay.
Because, that what you remarked was electricity breakdown, no water, maybe waterborne diseases. That part, I think, is the, still, there are a lot of challenges, what they are doing. But definitely I feel that, specifically post their experience in 1999 of a super cyclone, and I will take your words for it that, sometimes you learn more from failures than success stories.
Yes.
So that 1999 was a crucial point in which they actually seriously undertook this design. And now there are disaster recovery teams going to Bengal and other places for wherever this cyclone is. But this post
Yeah.
thing is something that they are actually.
Okay. This is a very good point. He is staying in Orissa, so he knows. So that means this is not mentioned in the case, but possibly then they have to focus more now on the post part, right? Okay, agricultural productivity. And you also mentioned a very interesting point there, that how can people maybe shift profession sometimes, right? So this kind of mobility across areas. Anyway, we have a lot of migrant laborers, but maybe within the state mobility where there is always a cyclicality, right? There are jobs coming up.
They do not have to stop the fishing.
Yeah.
But for a particular period of time, they can just
Yeah.
shift their work to
Yeah.
a different mode, and
Yeah.
then again come back when that chances are gone.
Yes.
So then their mortality.
Bangladesh, I have seen, even in Bangladesh, They are actually, I forget the name, there's a technical term for it. They can actually even cultivate fish or prawn or shrimps even on the rice paddy fields, right? So
That biofloc technology.
yeah, yes, possibly that, right? So there are ways to do this. Okay, agriculture productivity, anything? They are primarily, it's obviously paddy, but they have something else also. How do you think that agriculture productivity and farmers' income can be improved? And is there any role at all of digital technology? We mentioned in the morning a little bit about sensors and soil quality measurement, moisture measurement. So those things can also be started as a pilot. I mean, farmers did not know what details of the technology, but if you do this, I think we tend to assume that everything, all the soil, all the water, everything is same. It's not same. Even within a same district, there are variations. The soil alkalinity, salinity, different things will be different, right? pH levels of water, etc., will be different. So based on that, then they can come out with sometimes the sowing pattern might change a little bit. Maybe in this area we actually have to sow 2 weeks in advance, not what is being done, or sometimes
a little bit later. That is what I was explaining. Like for kharif crops, the timing which is there, I mean, they start, the sowing season is June to October and harvest is September to October. So if and they are saying that October and September, these are the 2 months which are being hit, or they are susceptible to such kind of dangers. So if that can be done, that we can shift to the kharif crop the other timing, meaning which starts after October. Normally it is from October to December, but if we can start after October, so we know that that time is gone, so we can we can just start with the agriculture that time, and we by increasing the productivity we can take the harvest also earlier, because again there we have the April to May timing wherein
yes, it is need not be, that is what I am saying. This is a very good point. It need not, historically it has been done in April to May, doesn't mean we cannot shift from March to April, right? And it might, some regions might do this, but to do this there has to be some kind of impact assessment. So previously, how much has been lost, how much crop has been lost because of the cyclone? If you think there is, that number is huge. Almost every year when cyclone happen, fatality is not happening, but people are always losing crops. Then there should be a emphasis to shift, as you said, from October to May, November or December to do this. But this is a big change, even farmers' mindset. This is a big change which needs to be communicated to them. But before doing that, that kind of pilot study has to be done, right? Some 1 or 2 years they have to try it out and see whether it's working. Maybe it will work, and for that again data, both weather data, soil data, irrigation, everything has to be planned, and then they shift to this. And if they show the impact, then that is possibly
and
good.
if the loss is persistent, sir, year after year, we can, the shift totally from
agriculture to something else. Yes,
that would be a better thing, because as the global warming and everything that is happening now, cyclone will be a common feature. So I think the shift, the other areas can concentrate more on farming, and this can be for manufacturing or other kind of packing, or
maybe not even paddy. There are other things they can do. Crop diversification is always, maybe they can shift to certain other vegetables, so you don't need to really follow that weather pattern. But all of these have to be scientifically done. It's not just single person, a single IAS officer comes and they cannot decide unless such scientific studies are conducted, data is collected, and then the impact is measured. Then only they can shift, because this is a big shift, big cultural shift also. The families have been paddy farming for generations. Why they will shift normal? And then what is happening is the younger generation, none of them want to be farmers. Right?
Yes.
That is also not a very good thing. Right? The farming can be profitable even in this context if you follow scientific practices. Right? Maybe they will shift to something else. Right now I see a lot of things on YouTube. I don't know. People are producing crops in India which is not historically never been done. They are growing strawberries. They are doing different kinds of mushrooms and berries, and kind of hostile environment. Strawberries normally do not grow in warm climate, right? But if under some aquaponic system or vertical farming, people are doing many things. So these things also have to be trained. People have to be trained and communicated. Okay.
There is a lot of work on regenerative ecosystems in this case.
Yeah.
About But I've seen that
Yeah.
there are soils depending on that, like was mentioned. I
Yeah.
think. So
What was the healthcare is a big issue, and this is also related to that post recovery thing. So normally healthcare situation is still it's very primitive level, particularly in rural communities, right? There are some primary health centers, they don't have all the staff, then medicine availability, all of this is an issue. How do you think that can be addressed? In the next few days, we will also cover one company who is trying to do this work. It's a company called iCure. So they are Kolkata based, but they have now expanded to different states, even in other countries. So their objective is this last mile healthcare delivery, right? So in very remote areas where virtually nothing exists, they have a technology based solution. We will learn about this. But irrespective of what that company is doing, how do you think we can provide better access to quality healthcare in a district like this, which is susceptible to weather? One is healthcare delivery during those weather events, but also throughout the year.
Sir, increase health experts and mobile ambulance used
Yes.
help to in that area.
Yes, so there is no need to set up everything in every block or village. That's company. So you can follow kind of a hub and spoke model, right?
Yes.
So there will be hubs where doctors are present, and they have these mobile clinics. They can go and visit the villages, but that plan has to be created. Like which villages will be visited this week or next week. This entire planning, routing, scheduling, planning, everything has to be created. What is the manpower you will have? Maybe some fixed doctors, but also paramedics and other nurses and so on, who will keep on visiting villages. That is important to understand for detection purpose, right? Even if you collect basic primary healthcare data like blood pressure and other things and sugar and do some basic blood test, you will come to know many things, which is what IQR is also doing. They collect very basic data, but from that they are able to then also predict as well as understand what is the risk of that person, diabetic or cardiac disease and eye disease and so on, and then accordingly they will mobilize resources. So some data needs to be, so mobile health clinic is a very good example.
Sir, again, another thing is if we can create a depository wherein everyone all in those affected areas, if we have the history of every person, the
Yeah.
medical history listed down, then if any after, the cyclone has hit, they are facing some kind of diseases and all, addressing to that disease, keeping that medical history into consideration can be of a great help.
Yes.
It can be quicker, much quicker to
yes,
address.
we must know what is, already there will be some diabetic patients,
Yes,
but maybe,
yes.
and if they didn't, diabetic patient is, if they didn't get medicine in those 2 weeks, what will happen to them? So
Yes.
we already know that these are vulnerable population. We have to target them first. They are not getting medicines. They are at a risk of even dying, right? So we
Yes.
must have that information. There is an institute called Indian Institute of Public, there is a Bhubaneswar based institute, public health something is there, IIPH or something. They do work in these kind of areas.
Life sciences is there. Indian Institute of Physical Life Sciences.
No, there is public health, II something, IIHMR or something is there, I know. Anything else? Plus also telemedicine, right? Telemedicine is already being applied in different parts of India. So doctors can be in those, maybe in Bhadrak district headquarters, but they can still consult. At least basic consultation can happen through telemedicine.
Supply of those medicines which are required at that point of time, more of those medicines
Yeah.
well in advance, so that we don't have to wait for the supply or create a
Yes.
demand that particular time.
Yes.
But it should be well stocked from beforehand.
Yeah.
Also keeping in mind the expiry.
Expiry as well as the distance, how much, where it will be stocked, all of these has to be.
That specific inventory management that
Yeah.
has to be done.
Okay, very good. In a short time, we have had some good discussion. But as you know, this is a real problem, and if some of you are interested, you are most welcome to work on it later on, and you can also reach out to me. Yes.
Now, one again from practical experience during the COVID time, I thought that they managed the urban primary centers very well. I mean, I'm talking about Odisha. When you are given the COVID vaccine, so that was 2 times. But one aspect which I thought could be, taken in is about those people or technical people who are there, the nurses or their training part, because, again, this is again a trade-off, like I was mentioning in the morning. So when you get this COVID vaccine files, so once you open it, you have to administer it to 5 people, okay? But then there is a temperature aspect also about the effectiveness. Now what they do, I have seen that sometimes, it might go beyond the time. So therefore, that, when to use it and when to actually discard it, because you might be the 5th person coming after a long time, and it has been exposed to that, thing. So it might not work.
Might not be effective. Okay.
So this, what I call the last, that training and this thing. But again, there is also a pressure of, like you said, that, they have to record, audit that, this has been given to this person with Aadhaar card and so on and so on. And so they cannot afford to, waste.
Parallelly, they were doing a lot of other work. So like the team of 4 or 5 people were working together, somebody is noting down.
But it was also a very good, this COVID vaccination, at least from the Orissa government, I will say that it was much better and monitored, because while I had traveled, several times between adjoining states like Bengal to Orissa, and there was, whenever I came down, there used to be strict checks and again follow up through telephone, etc. That I think you are in isolation where you are, etc. But I did not find it the other way around when I went from Bhubaneswar to Calcutta or something like that. So
that time, incidentally, we were in West Bengal. So my in-laws, both of them had COVID. So we stayed 4 months. So I also faced that time the realities. We all had COVID vaccine actually here. And that is in Purulia. You can understand it's a remote district in West Bengal. Okay, let's go to the end products case. That is a completely different scenario, but any thoughts?
So we started off with a very preliminary SWOT analysis of the whole situation. We realized that the strengths of this company are: 1, they have high quality products; 2, they have high innovation; 3, they have a sustainable mindset and they're driven by sustainability; and 4th, that their manufacturing practices are well established and good. The opportunities that we realized are digitalization, that they have to build upon the digitalization, and they have to utilize the engineering expertise that they already have. Now, coming to the weaknesses, we realized there are 2 weaknesses. One is the service delivery is not up to mark, and the second is the supply chain is very mismanaged. So based on that, we also realized that the major threats that are leading to these weaknesses are: 1, that there are geopolitical issues; 2, there are resource price volatility, and for example, trade wars are there, so the prices of resources are fluctuating; natural disasters; and the last one, we also realized that there's a major threat of customer trust that is not there. So they realize that even though the products that they have are very nice, the customers are not trusting enough in an uncertain environment to invest and to buy the product.
Yeah, because their products are also capital intensive. It's not a simple thing.
Right.
So it's quite costly. So customers are also, it's a big investment for them. So they are waiting and watching. They're not able to commit. Yes.
So we realize that customer trust, commitment, and branding might be a major threat that they're dealing with. So build on to that, we based the framework on the framework that you discussed: technology-focused solutions, people-focused solutions, and process-focused solutions. For technology, we realized that 1 is that we have to automate the supply chain processes as much as we can. So for prediction, forecasting, inventory management, we realized that demand forecasting is very important. So we have to utilize IoT, AI, ML for this process. For aspects like warehouse management, logistics, transportation, we have to incorporate GIS sensors, because these are manufacturing companies. So we have to realize that the temperature, etc., we are using sensors to build on that. The next we come to people. We have to develop the technological readiness that you talked about in the employees, because if we introduce all of these things, they have to be ready. We also realize that coming back to technology, we also realize realized that AI and social media are great tools that can be leveraged upon to build the customer trust, because social media is a very important tool. So customer branding has to be done using AI and social media. We also realized that these people have customers, manufacturing plants and R&D centers across the world. So we realized that that may be a source of issue, because everything is divided and we're not probably catering, we're probably generalizing the problems and it's not situated. So we thought that a solution might be to outsource market research service providers in each country to understand where the problem is lying, so that every problem in each country can be maybe personalized in a way. The process solution was that product lifecycle tracking has to be done from start to finish, and the assessment and root cause analysis of existing processes has to be done.
Yes, this is good, but if you look at the first question, that was the framework overall, you are saying that this is the kind of people process technology. That I will say it is more related to the last question, which is the change management part. In that change management, there are people changes, process changes and technology. But the first question was which kind of projects they should do. So what is the framework, because they have already done some pilot projects. We don't know how they have actually come out with this. This may be a little bit ad hoc, as you said, every company, maybe the senior management was actually wanting that, or maybe the people who suggested that idea made a convincing case and they did it. There is no overlying framework or justification of whether they should continue with those projects, they should add more, what is the investment needed, what is the time frame, what is the outcome, the kind of things which we talked about, that there are trying to address some challenges, there are certain technologies, how do you make that trust technology fit? Based on that, they need to prioritize. Is this enough? These 4 projects, are we going to continue on this, or are we going to drop some of these, or maybe also these things happen over a period of time. Maybe in the first wave we do these 4. What is going to come in the next wave? Maybe from year 2, year 3 onwards, we need to start also working on some new ideas. But there has to be some justification, some logic behind how we choose those projects. Plus these things also have to be interrelated. It should not be one is kind of already in negating some of the work which is done by others, or it requires more effort. What is the effort needed? What is the resource planning? A lot of things have to be decided. So that was the first question. How do we create a framework to this madness? It should not be very ad hoc, right? That somebody says that we should do this and we are doing. Any thoughts on this?
No, I was thinking, like, since their major weakness is service delivery and managing a complex supply chain, so why don't they try to look at revisiting their business model as product as a service, which can, kind of build in the trust.
If you notice, they already mentioned servitization as one of their core elements of that strategy. So there are, I will see it as a matrix. So there are certain projects we have to map how these are also related to their overall strategy. This should not be something outside, right? So there has to be some projects related to resilience, some projects related to servitization, some projects, what was the digitalization anyway is enabler. So resilience, sustainability and servitization. So this again I call it as a portfolio based approach. So there can be some projects related to servitization, some projects related to resilience and some sustainability, but which are those projects we need to identify. Once that is done, then which technologies can help, whether they have internal capabilities, whether they go to service providers, all these questions come in. Some of the things which you mentioned is correct, but still we need to have this bigger picture. These things cannot be misaligned with their overall strategy. It has to link with strategy, it has to be linked with what they have already done, plus what is the internal resource, what is the investment. Servitization is actually very important for them because their customers are also industrial customers. These products also take is a big investment for theirs, and that's why the service delivery part comes in. Previously they have been selling the products only, right? Selling the products, customers are using it, but they don't have a lot of data about how this is being used. That's why the service delivery is weak. They were pretty much always reacting to customers' requirements. Customers say this is not working, they will go and repair or service it. But now they need to understand how this is. That's what we discussed in the morning, that product as a service model, they need to collect the data and so on. But this also requires investment from the customer side. Customer has to now understand that moving into a service-led model is actually beneficial for them. When they see the mutual benefits, then only they will take. So there is a lot of investment needed on communicating that thing to the customers also. Then question, depending on the solution which you have taken, what data needs to be collected. Some data will come from the customer side, some from market research, some is in the external environment.
So there will be internal and external data. Internal data could also include, data collection from sensors, because,
Yes.
you are having these equipments. So
Yeah.
there are, like temperature, humidity, pressure, all
Yeah.
these are very important data for predicting the lifetime and maintenance. So similarly, you should also probably store this data in a cloud-based, kind of thing. And then what do you do with the data? You have to analyze, you have to analyze predictive models for the, maintenance and, all those things. And so therefore, again, it is not very much specified in this case about the digital cultural maturity, like, what is the...
So that is the one which you need to do as part of this change management. They have to do that assessment to see what
Because ultimately you have to look at, what I find very important is you have to have a customer centric approach and the value proposition, what you are, kind of like, even like I was saying in the morning, that the customer is willing to pay you more if they find some value, I mean, in it. And so that is what we have to, kind
that
of...
is what is still, I mean, lacking. Salespeople are not normally trained to do this. They try to sell the product or solution, but how is it actually going to benefit the customer? What is the benefit they are going to get? That has to be communicated. This company I know well, and they are actually very well known, and they have been actually a front runner in sustainability and digitalization. But their products are also complex. That's why it's not easy for their customers to take decisions about this. It requires a big change from moving to one kind of system to a new system, right? They are actually selling smart factory solutions also, right? The entire climate reporting. But maybe, so now ESG reporting is important, so their customers are also facing that. If these solutions support data collection about carbon footprint and energy consumption, that is also a good discussion they need to have with their customers. Maybe the current machine doesn't allow that, but requires a big change. They need to also upgrade their equipments, etc. Good, we will stop here, and then we have to have the MCQ.
Yes, quickly you can share the MCQ.
Only 10 questions. We have to do this every day. 10 MCQs at the end of the day.